Assalamu alaikum. In today's session with Pak SciComm, we have Dr. Aadeel Akhtar, who is the first Pakistani scientist who has been listed in MIT 35 under 35 list of the year for the year 2021. He is the founder of robotic limb psionic and is also famous all over the world for his AI controlled product for disabled ones called as Ability Hand. So let's welcome Dr. Aadeel Akhtar for today's session with us on Pak SciComm. Dr. Aadeel, it's a great pleasure to have you for this session with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Dr. Aadeel. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Aadeel, can you please start with your introduction? And if you can add it in a bit of Urdu, that will be great for our viewers because the pattern of our sessions are normally in Urdu. But if you're not comfortable, you are free to go ahead with English as well. So kindly introduce yourself, starting with your early education, and then your topic of your PhD, and then your current position at the moment.
हाँ मेरा उर्दू इतना अच्छा नहीं है लेकिन मैं कोशिश कर सकता हूँ मेरा current position अभी CEO and founder of a company उसका नाम है Psionic और हम bionic limbs बनाते हैं और ये है हमारा latest bionic limb called the Ability Hand and ये idea जो है शुरू हुआ था जब मैं 7 साल का था और मैं तो पैदा हुआ था शिकागो में और मेरा दोनों बड़े भाई शिकागो में पैदा हुए थे लेकिन मेरे अम्मी और अब्बू पाकिस्तान से हैं कराची में से हैं और जब मैं 7 साल का था फिर मैं कराची गया था और उस वक्त में मैंने पहले मर्तबा एक छोटी सी लड़की थी जो उनकी हाथ नहीं था और मैं that was the first time पहले मर्तबा जब मैं amputee को मिला था जो जिसके हाथ नहीं है and actually उनकी leg missing थी right और वो सड़क में रह रही थी और उस वक्त मैंने सोचा था कि हम पाकिस्तान से हैं लेकिन हमारे लाइफ इतने डिफरेंट है कि हम कैसे उसको फिक्स कर सकते हैं और उस वक्त मैंने इंस्पायर हुआ था कि हम बायोनिक लिम्स बना सकते हैं जो उनके लिए भी अच्छा हो सकता है और मैंने लोयोला यूनिवर्सिटी शिकागो में पढ़ा था अंडर ग्रेजुएट स्टडीज में मैंने बायोलॉजी पढ़ा था और कंप्यूटर साइंस में और न्यूरो साइंस में माइनर किया था फिर उसके बाद मैंने मास्टर्स लिया था कंप्यूटर साइंस में 2 साल उसके बाद मैंने लोयोला में पढ़ाया था उस्ताद बनाया था और उसके बाद 2010 में मैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ इलिनॉय में गया था और MD PhD प्रोग्राम के लिए 2016 में मैंने PhD ख़त्म किया था न्यूरो साइंस में और 2014 में हमने एक ट्रिप लिया था इक्वाडोर में और वहाँ से हमने मिला था एक आदमी उनका नाम है शेख याहिया सुकियो शेख याहिया सुकियो he lost his left hand left हाथ was missing 35 साल पहले वो Ecuadorian army में था और मशीन गन फायर था हेलीकॉप्टर से और उसका हाथ it became amputated.
Okay, Dr. Aadeel, thank you very much for your introduction. And I believe that it's better that we switch to proper English rather than continuing it in Urdu because although I feel that your Urdu is better than our English, still if we can have it for your convenience, we can have it in English. Okay, Dr. Adil, what was the topic of your PhD research?
Yeah, the topic of my PhD research was on both sensory feedback and motor control for prosthetic devices. So what that means is how the muscles can control a bionic hand to move and how you can actually feel from that bionic hand as well. So you have the signals coming from your brain to control the hand and also going back to your brain to feel from it.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting, especially for a person who is not very conversant with the field. Did you ever think that you will be listed in the MIT 35 under 35? You made a history to be the first Pakistani to be listed in that list. So did you ever think about it?
So first of all, I had no idea that I was the first Pakistani. That's a huge honor. And I never was expecting it, but I was definitely grateful. Alhamdulillah, I was grateful for the opportunity to be listed to that. And it's a huge honor for me to be recognized for that award.
Yeah, but did you even plan for that, or it just came randomly to you?
So the a lot of the professors that I've been working with, they have been honored with a lot of these types of awards, and so when the time came, they had recommended, hey, you should apply for this, and they became my recommenders for the award, and it happened to work out very well, alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Can you please elaborate about this particular award? What is it?
Yeah, and so this award is MIT Technology Review's 35 innovators under 35. And every year they select the top 35 innovators who are making really amazing things across the entire world. And for this year, I was selected as one of their humanitarians for our development of the bionic ability hand, which I have right over here. And uh, uh, in particular, we have been able to make this hand accessible in the United States to more people with amputations than ever before. And it's more advanced than ever than any other prosthetic that's out there, since it is the first hand on the market to give users touch feedback, that sensory feedback that I was talking to you about. That was part of my PhD thesis.
Hmm. Okay, Dr. Dil, you mentioned about your inspiration to go towards this field when you were a kid of 7 years, and you visited Pakistan and you happened to see somebody without these limbs, and then you got the inspiration. But what was that specific moment in your life that you actually realized, you felt that you can actually go towards this field, and you are very close to achieving the inspiration that you already had since your childhood?
Yeah, and so it was during my undergraduate studies at Loyola that the plan was to become an MD who works with patients, right? So a doctor who works with patients with amputations. And I took my first computer science class and I loved it. And I realized that if I became just a normal doctor, I wouldn't get to do any of the interesting things that I was learning in my engineering classes. And I wanted to learn a way to combine both of my interests in engineering and medicine. And that was when the field of bionics, especially at a hospital called the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab in Chicago, they made huge breakthroughs in mind-controlled bionic limbs. And they were doing special surgeries and building all these fancy devices that you could use to then use your muscles and your mind to control these bionic limbs. And it was combining, computer engineering, electrical engineering, physical medicine, and rehabilitation. And that's when I realized that that was exactly the field that I wanted to go into. Now, the big problem was that a lot of those devices, they cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars to just make the device. And that I knew that that was way too expensive for people like especially in developing countries around the world to be able to afford something like that. And that's when we started to develop our own prosthetic limbs, and we started to by 3D printing them. And we went through about 9 different prototypes where we started from zero, and we built the entire thing from the ground up. And now the hand itself, after many iterations, many failures, we are able to make the fingers out of silicone, which is kind of like our own fingers, and they're flexible. So I can actually like hit this thing and it survives. And then the hand itself is made out of carbon fiber, the palm here. So it's super resistant to impact, and it's very strong. We've taken it to a martial arts studio, and we've broken boards with it. We've done push-ups on the hand. We put it in a dryer for 10 minutes, and it just tumbled around in the dryer, and it was totally fine. So this hand was built to be very strong. And so while I was doing my PhD, that's kind of when we developed a lot of the techniques that we use inside the hand. So it's the first hand with sensory feedback. So in the fingertips, we have pressure sensors. And so every time I touch the fingers, there's a vibration motor that's in the socket itself that I've got here. And that will allow the user to know when they've touched an object, how hard they're touching an object, and when they've let go of the object as well. It's water resistant up to the wrist, so if it gets dirty, we take it to the sink and we just wash it off. It's USB-C rechargeable, so the same way you plug in your phone, you can plug in your hand, and you can actually charge your phone from your hand as well. So it's a superhuman ability we like to give our users. I mean, I wish I could charge my phone from my arm. That would be really cool. And the best part about it is that we've been able to, in the US, hit a price point that that the government would actually subsidize. So it's through an insurance called Medicare. And because of that, we've expanded access from only 10% of people who could afford it to now 75% of people in the US can actually afford a bionic hand. And that was really huge for us because we wanted to make sure that we could develop something that was more advanced than everything else, but also more accessible to more people than ever.
You know, Dr. Aadeel, this is a great service. The people like us who are perfectly all right in all kinds of limbs and these kind of things, maybe they cannot realize the potential of this innovation. But the people who have some kind of disability in terms of their limbs, I mean, this is a huge blessing for them. We can totally understand this is very costly at the beginning, but you know, at least to have this kind of facility, that's a huge blessing. There are human limbs are available for like many years, but developing a brain controlled, mind controlled bionic limb, that's a huge achievement. So you must have faced very difficult times in manufacturing that kind of devices. So is there any particular incident that you want to share with us that you felt very difficult and you kind of felt desperate, but suddenly things started coming your way and you overcame that instance?
Yeah, so for example, a really important one was when we started out, we were completely 3D printing everything, right? And the advantage of 3D printing is that you can make things very inexpensively, right? It's very cost effective. But the problem with 3D printing is that it's very fragile. बहुत कमजोर है, right? And so when we made those 3D printed hands and we started talking with hundreds of patients and their doctors, the number one thing that they complained about was that their very expensive hands were breaking all the time. And these were, they were made with like machined steel and injection molded parts, and so no 3D printing there, right? It was made to be very strong, but they were still breaking. And it was because they were made out of rigid materials, right? So the rigid plastic that they use for the fingers, they would accidentally, the patient would hit the hand against a table by accident, right? They would just hit it against a table and it would break the finger. And if we take our own hand and we hit that against an object, it has flexibility, it has what we call compliance. And so we needed to build that same idea into our hand, while keeping it just as cost effective as 3D printing. And we didn't know what to do at that point, because we had been just 3D printing all of these prototypes. And so we turned to the research. We looked at a lot of journals and literature that was out there. And what we realized is that instead of 3D printing the actual hand, we could 3D print molds and use low-cost silicone and rubber instead to make the fingers. And that's why our fingers are so flexible here. And so then we were able to have the hand flex with the flexible silicone. So you can move all the fingers. So here's all 5 fingers flexing and extending, and you can do different grips. So here's like a pinch or like a tripod grasp. You can even point with individual fingers too. So here's pointing with an index finger. But yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Aadeel, yeah, I mean, it's a huge achievement. So you are unique in terms of achieving a milestone, but also for me, I think it's a huge service to humanity too. So in the end, it's an honor for me to have you to have a session with you. I would like to have a message from you, not as CEO of the company, but as a servant of the humanity, that you are servicing the humanity in a huge way. So is there any, or as a researcher, is there any message that you want to give to the young researchers or and to the general public?
Yeah, basically, it comes down to 2 things. One is having grit and perseverance, right? Never giving up, right? Having that attitude that, even when things are going very hard and difficult and you want to give up, to not give up, right? That's one of the most important things. And the second thing is to always have gratitude, gratitude towards Allah, gratitude towards all of your colleagues and everything that you're doing, because, at the end of the day, this is all for Allah, right? Everything that we do. So that is, keeping those 2 things in mind, and alhamdulillah, you should be able to accomplish like everything, inshallah, that you want to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely true. Can't agree more with that. That you should have, first of thing, you must be grateful to your Lord for whatever He's given to you, or even to the public that you interact with. If they have given you some favor, you must be very thankful to them. And second one is perseverance. You must be consistent in what you are doing, and Allah will reward you with something as big as that you have achieved. So thank you very much once again, Dr. Aadeel. It was great pleasure talking to you, and we would have loved to continue with you for a bit more, but because of the time constraint, we have to end the session in here. So thank you very much with us.
Jazakallah khair.